Amen. Well, good morning, Image family. I hope you're doing well. Listen, I'm excited about our fall kickoff that'll be happening right after the service in here. I can't believe summer's already over. For those of you that have school-age kids, some of y'all started Friday, some of you start on Monday, and if you're an educator, we love you, we value you, we're grateful for what you're doing on the front lines, and just can't believe summer's already come to an end. But I'm excited about what's happening in the life of our church. I'm excited about the fall. I know we've got a lot of new people that are joining us. If that's you, we're so glad that you're here. You picked a heck of a time to jump in. I mean, free food all over the place. Apparently, we love feeding you. I mean, I guess we're a church in the South, and we're trying to do the right thing. You know what I mean? And so we're glad you're here. We got food for you today. And we also just got a lot of exciting opportunities for you to jump into that you heard a little bit about. But we've got groups that are launching. There are groups that meet all over the place, and there's a ton of them. And we want to make sure that you're connected. When you walked in on the wall out there, there's 4 things that we want to see happen in the life of our church. One of them is we want everybody connected to a group. And so the heart is that we're rolling out groups for you to be able to get connected to them. So make sure you take the next steps to be able to do that. Stick around for fall kickoff. Another way too, and we've been doing this the past couple of weeks, but again, I know we've got folks coming in, joining us new. Serve teams is another great way to connect to the life of our church. Specifically 2 serve teams that I'd love to kind of promo for just a second. And that is Image Kids back there. Man, one, super grateful for all of you that put your yes on the table. I think we had about 10 or so sign up last week. This is incredible, and we're grateful for that. The ask is once a month back there. We do a worship service or a time for you in here before you serve once a month there. Honestly, I was thinking about the other day, if you want to talk about minimalist, you're serving 12 times a year, ideally. So I'm just saying, it's a great place for you to be able to serve and be connected to the life of our church. The other is our worship production side of things, particularly if you know how to play a keyboard, be awesome to have you. And so if you could stick around afterward, we'd love to be able to talk with you more about what that could look like. All right. Well, listen, I know we got a lot happening, including you heard from Jonathan. We've got a new series that we're kicking off today through the book of Ecclesiastes. If you've got your Bible, go ahead and turn there. He pointed the journal that you've got. I want to talk to you a little bit about this. The hope is that you bring this with you every week, and you can do a couple of things with it. You can just hold on to it and journal, and during your time of the Word during the week, and read through Ecclesiastes, or you can use it to take notes here. If you're new with us, I just want you to know that we love walking through the Bible. Like Jonathan said, I'll highlight some specific things. What I like about these journals is it allows you to be interactive with the text as well. You can highlight and circle and underline, and so I want to encourage you to be able to do that. And then this serves as a reference for you. When you're walking through something in life or you want to go back and refer to it, you've got this journal that you can go back to and remember our study through the book of Ecclesiastes, which I'm excited about kicking off this morning. And I was thinking about a way, man, how do I set this up? Because there's so much, it's so big, it's so deep, and I'm super excited about jumping all in with you. And I was just reflecting on a couple of things. And this summer, my daughter and I, we got the chance to fly for the first time, she and I together. I've flown before. She flew one time when she was like 5 months old and doesn't remember it at all. So she's 8 now and remembered it. And y'all, listen, I'm telling you, you'd have thought we went to Disney World. Like, we get in the airport, and she's like, wow. And I'm like, this is miserable. Like, you didn't even get to the best part yet. You know what I mean? It's Atlanta Airport, you know? And so we're riding. She's like, Daddy, I rode on a subway. We're on a subway. And I'm like, well, it's a tram, but okay, we'll check it off as a subway. Like, you're crowded in here. And I mean, she said, can we ride it the whole way? Can we ride it back? And I'm just like, my goodness. So, then we finally get to the gate, and she sees the airplane. She's like, oh, we're flying on that thing, and that's amazing. And I'm just like, gosh, this is wild, how simple things. So we get on the airplane, we're walking on it. She's like super excited. She touches the airplane, touch the outside of the airplane. And we get in there, and the lady that's the stewardess is there, flight attendant, was incredible. She like gives her the wings, and she's like, Daddy, I got wings. And we get to our seat, and she's got a window. And, typically for those of you that travel more frequently, you get on the airplane, everybody kind of shuts their window, and they're like, let me be. Nah, not if you're sitting near my daughter. That window's open the entire time. Lights are all over the place. She's pushing buttons. What does that do? What does this do? And she's glued to the window the entire time. And so she's looking out there, and we take off, and that whole thing, I videoed the whole takeoff. It is priceless. Just the look on her face as she like feels all the things as you're going through the takeoff. And we get up there, and it's a beautiful day, sky's clear, and there's these massive clouds. They're enormous, and they look beautiful. I mean, they're just like big, fluffy clouds. And she's looking out the window, and I can tell the wheels are spinning, which is pretty typical for her anyway. And so she looks at me, she's like, Daddy, what would happen if you got out of the plane and you stepped on the cloud? And I was like, well, you'd fall right through it. She's like, no way. And I'm like, no, seriously, you would fall. She's like, it doesn't look like that. That you could, are you sure? And I'm like, I'm sure. You don't want to test that theory. Like if you walk through the cloud, yeah, it ain't gonna work. And I was just telling, I was like, listen, watch, we're about to fly through the cloud. Look at this, we're going through it. Did anything happen? No, did you feel anything? No. I'm like, it looks like it, but the reality is and she's like, well, what is it? And so I'm like, oh my gosh, we're having science class now. You know, it's like the vapor comes up and the cloud and condensate, you know, all this stuff. And I'm doing the best I can to remember, you know, when I was in middle school and what they taught me about the weather. And, you know, so, but the good news is she doesn't know. So whatever I told her, she's like, heh. So anyway, we're flying through there and she's like, this is crazy. And I thought about that story because, man, in so many ways, it's a picture of our lives. And you're like, what are you talking about, a cloud? Because here's what we do. We look at things like my daughter looked at the cloud and we look at it and we say, man, that thing's got substance. But the reality is when we go to grasp for it, there's nothing there. We think that our job is going to be the thing that'll sustain us and provide for us. There's so much sustenance to that. And man, it'll sustain us. It'll allow us to be fulfilled and all this stuff. And then we go to reach for it and it's like reaching through a cloud. Or we say, man, if I can just get to this next season in my life, if I can find the relationship, if I can find the person, if I can get married, if I can have the kids, if I can, right? We try to plan out our lives and we're like, man, if we can get this thing, then life will have meaning. We'll get to the place where we want to get to and we grab for it. And when we grab for it, there's nothing there. Right? Or we set our lives out. We've got this plan. We want to be successful. We want to make it to the end. We want to climb the corporate ladder. We want to get the house on the corner with a white picket fence. And we want all these things to fall into place. And all of a sudden, they don't fall into place. It's like a cloud. Or the things that we think are expected realities for us don't work out. So the desires that we had, the plan we had for our life, it doesn't happen. It's like reaching for a cloud. The things that we thought would be the things that would shape us and define us and the obstacles that we would overcome and the ladders that we would climb, we don't climb them, things change. It's like reaching for the cloud. See, over and over and over again, we find ourselves with unexpected outcomes at a place where we think we will finally find something that will sustain us, only to find that it's like reaching through a cloud. Y'all, life is perplexing. It's confusing. We can't ever figure it out. And just when we think we do, something else happens. You've been there. Ecclesiastes, what it's going to do, it's not going to offer us some kind of surface level inspiration. What it's going to do is going to press into the cycle that we're so often stuck in. This cycle of looking for substance and sustenance in things that can't actually give it to us. And it's going to push our eyes past the everyday, past the circumstantial realities, past the confusion that we experience to something more. That's going to be the journey that we're going to be on through the book of Ecclesiastes, all right? So let's jump in. Ecclesiastes chapter 1. We're going to cover the first 11 verses, and we're going to take it a little bit slow because it's going to set up the trajectory of where we're heading. So this is how it starts. The word of the teacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem. Now, for starters, you can make a note of this. Ecclesiastes is considered wisdom literature in the Bible. It's considered wisdom literature in the Bible. Now, the author, who's the author of this wisdom literature? We don't actually know. The author doesn't state who it is. He doesn't identify himself. Now, the predominant opinion had been that this was Solomon, that after Judges chapter 11, 1 Kings chapter 11, when he kind of turned and was an apostate from God, that this is his return back. And he writes this, looking back at his life, kind of regretting all the things, and puts the puzzle pieces together. This has been kind of a historic view. It's a way that people have kind of seen it. The problem is there's a lot of scholars that disagree with that, a lot. And there's some compelling arguments. I don't have time to get into all of them. You can go look them up. I read through them. I'm just telling you, they're compelling. One of them, most specifically, is that 1 Kings 11 shows us that Solomon's life comes to an end with him rejecting God, that he's unfaithful, that he chose to do things his way instead of God's way, pleasing to his own eye, turning to the gods of his wives, his foreign wives that he had married, and he dies apart from God, apostate from the faith. He's unfaithful at the end of his life. And so that's one of the things we go like, man, okay, how does that all fit together? And so what scholars have done is they look at, man, well, then who else could have written it? Well, it could be somebody else in the line of David that was a king. Or another compelling point is that it's somebody that adopted a Solomonic persona. They picked up pieces. They kind of took on this persona of Solomon and wrote as if they were him for the purpose of showing us that if the guy who is the most wise, the most successful, and the most wealthy to ever live couldn't find satisfaction, how in the world do we think that we can? So there's a compelling argument. That was somebody that took that on and kind of took that perspective. Regardless, there are undertones of Solomon. There's a persona of Solomon, either with it either being written by him or written because of him, but there is undertones as it relates to that. There's a connection to Solomon in one way or another, but the author is unknown. We don't know who it is. But what we do know is that this is the inspired word of God that's useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness so that we would be thoroughly equipped for every good work. That's 2 Timothy 3:16. And so we want to honor it as that. Now, there's another part, even beyond the author, that we've got to understand as we get ready to get in this. The author is going to introduce us at the very beginning here in verse 1 to somebody called the teacher. Your translation might say the preacher, but teacher's a better translation. The teacher is a character in the book, but he's different than the author of the book. Okay, so the teacher is a character in the book, but he's different than the author of the book. What we're going to hear mostly throughout Ecclesiastes is the teacher's voice. Now, we don't know who this is either, but what we do know is that he's the one that the author allows to challenge our perspective on this world. And so the author's goal is to identify all the ways that we try and build meaning and purpose in this life apart from God, and then he lets the teacher deconstruct all of those things for us. So the teacher's going to confront how we invest our time, our energy, our emotion into things that ultimately have no lasting significance in this life. And so this is going to challenge us to stop trying to make sense of all of this world, and it's going to point us to start looking beyond this world to the God who created it. This is the heart behind it. And then at the end, we'll hear from the author again as he'll come back around at the very end of Ecclesiastes and help us try to make sense of all that we've heard from the teacher, okay? So that is the context of and the setting for Ecclesiastes. Let's jump into where the teacher begins in verse 2. Here's how the teacher starts. It's a ringer. You ready? Absolute futility, says the teacher. Absolute futility. Everything is futile. Now, if you got a pen or lipstick, or you could prick your finger too, it'd be kind of weird, but underline the word futile right there. Futile. The English translation, that is not great. That's not a great English translation. In Hebrew, the word is hevel. Hevel, hevel. Now, this word is very important. It's used 38 times in the book of Ecclesiastes. And we don't have a great translation. For some of you, it might say meaningless. Some of you, it might say futile or vanity. Here's the idea. It literally refers to vapor or smoke. Vapor or smoke. And the author's using this as a metaphor to describe how life is temporary and fleeting, like a wisp of smoke. He also uses the word hevel to highlight the reality that life doesn't make sense. It's an enigma. And if you're anything like me, you're like, that's a big word. What does it actually mean? Enigma is just a fancy way to say a mystery. I don't know why we like to use big words. Just say a mystery. So life is a mystery. And not only is life a mystery, but it's also a paradox, another big word that people like to use. But basically what that means is that we're living in an unexpected reality where what we think is right actually isn't. The things that we think are true actually aren't necessarily true. And so the illustration of smoke or vapor is so helpful to drive this point home, because as we started at the beginning, it looks like a solid. But when you go to grab it, there's no substance that's there. This is the point of the teacher. This is what he's trying to get at. This is us so often in this life, right? We grasp for things that we believe have substance that will sustain us, but they ultimately can't. So let's look at verse 3 as the teacher begins to set all of this up by drawing us in. And he's going to draw us in with a question that we're going to be forced to be able to answer. Verse 3, what does a person gain for all of his efforts that he labors at under the sun? All right, now, this is huge, and we're not going to go this slow throughout the entire book, but all of these things set up everywhere that we're going to go. So this right here frames out almost the entire trajectory of the book, and I want to show you through 3 specific ways, and you can underline these, so I like the journal, to interact with the text. But the first one is the word gain. So you can underline the word gain there, or prosper, right? Or prosper. He's saying, what does it gain or prosper? Now, here's why this is important. Check this out. It's mentioned 9 times in Ecclesiastes, this word in the Hebrew that means gain or profit. But watch this. It's not mentioned anywhere else in the Old Testament. the author is going to drive home a very specific point, and he's going to use this word to help us see our desire for gain or benefit or profit that we have in this life. So that's the first part. The second part is he talks about the efforts that we labor in. The efforts that we labor in. The sense of this word in the Hebrew is this like hard toil. This hard work, this drudgery that we're in. If you're a millennial, it's the grind, like the legit grind of life that we're all faced with, right? This is what it's getting at, is that we work so hard in this life, and the work that we do in this life is not really that fun necessarily. It's actually drudgery. It's kind of miserable at times. And for those of us that, have adulted and you have a real job, you know this to be true. You're like, man, it's not always what it's cracked up to be. There's a hard grind that's there. That's the second. Here's the third. He talks about these efforts and labors that we toil at under the sun. Another huge phrase here. This phrase is going to come up 28 times in Ecclesiastes. So underline that, 28 times. And it's an important concept for us. The best way to describe this is, one scholar says it like this: it's shorthand for the restricted sphere of activities that the author has the privilege of being able to see. Think about it like this. The author is containing the world to life under the sun. God is above the sun. God is outside of the sun. God is in control of all that happens under the sun. But the teacher's perspective has been limited to that which is happening underneath the sun. So the teacher's perspective is one of a broken, unraveled, distorted creation that fell when sin entered the world. Right, the teacher's perspective is one that's bound by time. The teacher's perspective is one that's frustrating and perplexing and puzzling and incomprehensible as he looks in his finite worldview over what's happening in life. And so this idea of under the sun is really important because it's the context that we all live in. And it symbolizes the limited perspective that we all have. God is the only one that sees above the sun down. We all see under the sun what we're experiencing. And this is why so often life is so perplexing. It's why we face things, right, man, just when we thought we had everything figured out, it all falls apart. Just when we were on this one trajectory and one track, everything changes, right? We've got a very limited, finite perspective that we're dealing with. And so the teacher is wanting us to ask the question and is drawing us into this question: what do we gain with all of our efforts that we labor in under the sun? And the teacher's leading us to the answer that we gain nothing from all of our toil and labor in this curse-influenced, time-bound world that's both mysterious and counterintuitive to our natural instincts so many ways most of the time. He's saying, listen, we invest all of this labor and toil into something that seems like it has so much substance. And then we go to grab it only to realize that it doesn't. Only to realize that it doesn't. Practically, let's get practical for just a minute. I want you to think about your job. I want you to think about school if you're a student. Does it ever just feel pointless? Right? Do you ever step back and think about the grind that you're in, that you get in your car, you drive an hour to go to the office, to sit down and answer emails, only to drive an hour back home, to eat dinner, go to bed, and get up and do the same thing all over again? And you step back and you're like, I feel like I could have done all of that in one place. And you're probably right, but that's what we do, right? We just drive and emails and back, and you go to meetings, and it's this grind over and over and over again. We go to the office, we come back, and we're just on the cycle. Like, how often do we step back and realize the cycle that we feel so stuck in? Or do we even see that we're stuck in it? Let me ask you this. Have you ever thought about what would happen, heaven forbid, by the way, if you died? What would the response be at your job? Right? They'd probably put flowers at your desk for about 2 days, and then after 2 days, they'd throw an ad out on Indeed to replace you. That's just what they would do. Like, it's just for everybody, all of us. Your boss would be on there being like, I need somebody that can be actually better than that person. Like, that's just what they're gonna be doing. Job moves on, right? And so we step back, we're like, wait a minute, but I'm giving my life to this. Like, y'all, listen, we will harness and hitch our identity to what we do. But the minute you die, they're looking to replace you. Do you see how easily we find ourselves attaching ourselves to things that are so fleeting and temporary? Like we're grabbing for smoke. We will build our identity off of what we do. And yet when we die, it's gone. Do you ever stop and think about that? At the end of the day, what do we gain from that? I mean, y'all, listen, I've done funerals. I've been around death a lot. And when that hearse goes driving, there's not a U-Haul ever attached to it. There's just not. Because you can't take it with you. This is what the teacher's drawing us into to say, listen, it's like my dad when I played football back in the day, and I'm learning how to play and have that helmet on. I look like the pads were too big and all stuff, and he grabbed my face mask and pulled me in and say, listen. That's what the teacher's trying to do, saying, listen, what do you gain? You're toiling, you're working so hard. You're banking all of everything on this. Do you ever stop and think about it? Do you ever think about how we work our whole lives to gain money, only we're too old to ultimately spend it? Do you ever think about you work your whole life to get all your stuff? And if you're wealthy, your kids will have an estate sale. If you're like me, they'll have a yard sale, you know? And they put your stuff out and they'll sell it, get rid of it. Like, that's just it. Like, that's what's gonna happen. And yet we toil and we work. The teacher is wanting to provoke this thought process in us. We live in a way and we pursue our jobs in a way that we think will offer us more, but the reality is they can't and they won't. And then he goes on to verse 3, another category. He says, a generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun sets, panting. It hurries back to the place where it rises, gusting to the south, turning to the north, turning goes the wind, and the wind returns in its cycle. All the streams flow to the sea, yet the sea is never full. To the place where the streams flow, they will flow again. And you're like, man, like all the philosophers would be like, profound. He's making the point, he's like, listen, creation is on this beautiful, self-sustaining cycle. And ultimately, it's not impacted by you or me. It moves on without us. The world's on this cycle. And it actually kind of caught me off guard when I was talking about the streams flow in the ocean, never fills up. I was like, that's actually a really good point. You know, like we went to a stream, a well, brook. It came out of the, whatever, you know, I should know the name of it because I love outdoors, but it's where where water comes for the very first time and you go to it, or a spring. Somebody said, there we go. Went to a spring with the kids, my goodness. Went to a spring and, we're there and you're like, man, where does this water come from? And it just like keeps coming and people are bringing jugs, like filling them up. And I'm like, y'all are onto something. Talk about fresh spring water for free. Here it is, you know? But you think like, man, it just keeps coming and where does it go? And then it flows and ultimately everything kind of dumps off in the ocean. And his point is to draw us into that. Their perplexity of like, man, nature moves on. Nature keeps moving with or without you. It's on this cycle. Have you ever stepped back and looked at nature and seen that it doesn't need you to sustain it? That it doesn't need you to function? That it's going to continue. It was going before you were here. It's going to continue long after you're gone. The greatest example I could think of, man, when I was prepping, I was just like, man, like, I love to hunt. Y'all know this, but like one of my favorite types of hunting is to hunt pigs. And this is very helpful for creation because the reality is pigs just destroy farmers' territories and they reproduce like crazy. Like a mom pig can have a litter of like 8 to 10 pigs. And as soon as she gives birth, like 2 weeks later, she's pregnant again. It's insane. And so what do? You go out and you shoot pigs, only more come. You shoot pigs, only more come. And there's guys that I hunt with and there's places that I go and it's like, man, is the pig population down? And they're like, not at all. How many pigs you kill last year? 237 pigs. It didn't change a bit, not a bit. Like, because it just continues to backfill. It's not just with that, it's all other creation. I mean, listen, I love to deer hunt and I'll shoot a lot of deer. But those deer, they keep on coming back. They just keep reproducing. Nature's on a cycle with or without us. It's continuing to move. Do you ever step back and think about that? Do you ever see creation on repeat? Not as a bad thing, but as an interesting one. That it keeps going through generations and generations. And then it's self-sustaining. It doesn't need you. It doesn't need me. Watch this. This should be wonderful for us to see. This should be something that draws us to the beauty of God. This should be something that we're captivated by, the fact that creation moves without us, that it's on this repeat cycle perfectly and it sustains itself. But rather than being caught up in the beauty, we're caught in a weary loop within the midst of the beauty of creation. as opposed to looking at the loop of beauty that creation is cycling through, we're caught in a loop of misery in the midst of that beautiful creation as we drudgingly go throughout this life looking for substance and sustenance, missing what lies behind it all, which is the Creator. Do you ever think of that? We talk about nature a lot here and just how God uses nature and how we should see through it to the one who created it. Half the time we don't see the beauty of that. We're too much caught in the mess of our own life. What God created, this beautiful creation, here we are toiling, miserable, searching for something. Creation's not doing that. It doesn't need that. It's cycling on its own, self-sustaining. Verse 8, the teacher moves on. All things are wearisome, more than anyone can say. The eye is not satisfied by seeing, or the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There's nothing new under the sun. Can one say about anything, look, this is new? It has already existed in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of those who came before and of all those who will come. After, there will also be no remembrance of those who follow them. He's saying, listen, our desires ultimately won't satisfy us. Our desires won't satisfy us. That there's this desire that our eyes and ears have where we crave more, but the reality is we can't ever find it. There's nothing really new. Even the memories that we have fade. For many of us, we live life for the sake of the memories, right? The photographic moment. And it's like even those moments that were so great in the moment, they don't sustain us because life and time is moving. There's these deep desires that we have to find more. And often we're looking at all the wrong places. It can be your job, but it can also be the computer, right? It can be going back to the addiction that you have. It could be going to the places that you know you shouldn't be, or finding an identity in something you know you shouldn't find it in. You keep going back over and over again. Why? Your eye and your ear, they're itching, they want more, but you keep going back because it can't give you what you ultimately need. We're longing and looking, our desires point us in a direction to say we've got to get and gain and feel certain kind of things. And we get it for a moment, sustains us for a second, we go back to it over and over and over. This is the cycle. The teacher wants to draw us into this reality that everything is on a cycle. That work, it ultimately offers us nothing. Creation, it doesn't care about us. It's beautiful and it sustains itself apart from us. And it keeps on moving. There's nothing new that we can find. There's nothing new under the sun. History has just repeated itself. And nobody's going to remember of the past or the present. Listen, how many of you have a picture of George Washington on your desk? When's the last time you thought about George Washington? Like, he's a pretty big figure. I don't know, first president. There's a whole lot that happened around that whole thing with us and another country and tea parties and all kind of crazy stuff, right? Goes down. We don't think about him. Like, you might learn about him in history one time. It's not like you're thinking about him. That's a big part of history. Nobody cares. People aren't thinking about it, right? This is his point. It's like, man, history comes, history goes, no matter how climatic or whatever. It's this cycle that we're on. There's no remembrance of who came before or who came after. Life just seems pointless. And it is. It is pointless. Unless you embrace something beyond this life that then shapes how you view it. If we look to the things in this life to sustain us, we will never find what we're looking for. But if we look to someone beyond this life to shape us, we will find what we've been created for. Ecclesiastes draws us into this reality that what we are looking for in this world, we will not find. We must look beyond this world to the God of it to be the one that gives us what we need. He's the one who shapes and defines us. There's a guy that's kind of began to get his head around this, and he's becoming more of a public figure in a big way as he talks about this a whole lot more. And it's Scotty Scheffler, who's a golfer. And you've probably seen the most recent one where he came out. He's won multiple big tournaments. And he's sitting there and he's talking about golf, and he just kind of rambles about golf. And he's like, well, I mean, like, you win and you enjoy it for, I think he says 3 minutes afterward. And then you're on to the next thing. You're thinking about the next deal. You're back out. And he talks about this just kind of toilsome cycle that he's a part of, and how really, no matter how big the tournament, no matter how much the money is, that like, man, it's just this cycle. Like you win and then you want to win again, and you lose and you want to go win. And you're just on this. And he's like, man, it's the reason why you can't look at it to be the thing that satisfies you. He's like, this can't be your substance. This can't be the thing that sustains you. It's too fleeting. It's too temporary. And he anchors his hope and his satisfaction and his identity in the God that created him. He says that's where you find it. That's where you find the sense of worth, purpose, and value. That as we go through the toils of this life, the ups and downs of the journey, there's a sustaining stability that we find in God in the midst of the perplexing world around us. And he anchors himself, and it's been going viral. People are like, oh my gosh, this guy, like, who talks like this? And he's just saying what everybody else knows to be true. We've talked about it in here before, but you go back to Tom Brady, who's not a believer. And he, after his 4th Super Bowl, goes, man, sitting on the bathroom floor by himself. And he says, there's got to be more than this. There's got to be more than this. He's still on the quest. Scotty's just putting into words what everybody else is experiencing. The only way that we're going to make sense of this world is not by looking to it, but looking beyond it. To the God that comes into the world under the sun to bring about his perfect plan and a purpose for you and for me. See, the God that looks down and sees everything, as we look at our one perspective of life under the sun, God sees all of it. And God sees fit for his perfect plan to be that he would come down and rescue us from the challenging circumstances of this world. The challenging circumstances, by the way, that we caused, it happened through sin. God's perfect creation was beautiful. It wasn't perplexing. It wasn't confusing. And it wasn't unraveling. But when sin entered the world, it was like a pollutant, like a toxin that entered the world. And God's good creation began to unravel. Sin tainted everything. And so we begin to see the fall of creation, where that perfect harmony no longer exists, and there's brokenness. Brokenness between us and God, brokenness between us and other people, brokenness between us and creation, brokenness in the way that we view ourselves. And it created all of these confusing perplexities. It created all of these challenges. It created all of these circumstantial broken things that we walk through, and we're like, man, I just don't understand. And where are you, God, and what is going on? And God says, I've been here all along, and I've got a plan. I'm actually going to come and free you and rescue you from the bondage that you're facing. And God comes down and he offers us something in himself that we could never achieve on our own. The God of the Bible is the only God that came down and said, I'll come to creation in the midst of the unraveled brokenness and bring about something beautiful. And God comes down and he lives in our place. Everywhere we've messed up, he's perfect. And then he would go to the cross and he would die for our sin on the cross. He would hang on the tree and pay for all the rejection and rebellion that you and I committed in this life. And he wouldn't stay dead, but he would raise from the dead. And in that, he'd show that he's God, but he'd give us hope of new life in and through his finished work. The beauty he would bring out of brokenness is the restoration that he started. See, the beauty of the resurrection is not the end, it's the beginning. It's the beginning of God making all things new. And he starts with the root cause by dealing with our sin, but then he's going to move on one day and return and deal with our circumstances. The perplexing realities that we face, the challenges, the brokenness, it will all go away one day. But in the meantime, we wait. And it's this redemptive, restorative view of who Christ is that shapes how we wait in the midst of the confusing realities that we face. It's Christ that we anchor ourselves, and it's Christ that we anchor our hope to in the midst of a shifting, confusing, perplexing world. It's Christ that gives us purpose to where we see that we were created not just to toil at a job and grasp at smoke. We were created to be worshipers of the God that made us. That our purpose is to worship him. Our purpose is to live in light of who God is. And so then we begin to see the beauty of the New Testament that restores how we view this world. And in the midst of all of the brokenness and true realities that still ring true from Ecclesiastes, there's a new perspective that we can have, and it's one that happens through the lens of the gospel. Practically speaking, it looks like this. Paul will write to the church in Colossae in chapter 3 that whatever your hands find to do, work at it with all your heart, as if working unto the Lord, not unto man. That's a redemptive, gospel-centered perspective. Watch this. If you don't work with your hands as unto worship for the God that made you, and you go work with your hands for yourself, you will never find satisfaction there. That'll be like grasping at smoke. But when you do it with a greater purpose, the purpose that God intended you to do it with, that work is worship, you'll find a purpose in that. Because you'll begin to see that you're actually an ambassador at your job. That you're called to be an ambassador of Christ at your job. You're called to tell people about the goodness of God and the Redeemer who would bring about that kind of restoration. See, Colossians would talk about that multiple times, and then Paul would write to the church in Corinth in chapter 15, verse 58, and he'd say, therefore, dear brothers and sisters, be steadfast and immovable, always excelling in the Lord's work. Watch this, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. Do you see the reorienting of the purpose that God gives? The author of Ecclesiastes would say at face value, work is pointless. It's vanity. It's like grasping at smoke. But in the New Testament, through the gospel lens of what Christ has given us and purchased for us, we see that it's got value and purpose when it's done rightly as if unto the Lord. When we excel in the works of God, it is purposeful and it's beautiful. And it gives us a new perspective and a new purpose. Y'all, listen, life is always going to be perplexing, confusing, challenging. We're going to have questions. We're not going to figure things out. There's so much that we don't understand under the sun. But we can trust the God that's over the sun. We can trust that he's working and that he's in control in the midst of all of it. And watch this, the minute that we take our eyes off of him and we start looking at the things under the sun in this world to satisfy and sustain us, it will leave us feeling empty and like life is pointless. But when we look past the sun to the God over the sun, he gives us value, purpose, and meaning in this life. We get to enjoy the gifts that he's given us. We get to leverage the gifts that he would call stewardship in the New Testament. Life begins to have purpose. For some of you this morning, you're looking to things and you're putting an improper weight on them. You're expecting that job, that relationship, that marriage, those kids, that addiction. You're expecting it to give you the thing that you want, but it can't. There is nothing that can carry that weight other than Jesus. He's the only one that can be to you the thing that you need. And so we come in thirsty and we come in hungry because what we're doing is we're grasping at smoke. We sit down and what we need is a meal and we're looking at a mirage and we go to eat it and we hit a plate. So we're left hungry. Jesus says, come to me. Come to me, I'm the living water. Come to me, I'm the bread of life. I am the one that will sustain you. I am the one that will bring purpose and beauty in the midst of the brokenness. And I know that you may not understand everything, but you're not God. And you can trust that he is God and that he understands it all and he has a purpose and he has a plan in the midst of it. So we can endure in the confusing realities of this life with calmness and peace, knowing that we have a God that's in control, knowing that we have a God that we can look to, knowing that we have a God that's given us beauty in the midst of brokenness, purpose in the midst of perplexity. My question is, where are you at this morning? What are you trying to build your life on right now? What is it that you're looking to that won't last? Is it that job? That relationship? And listen, we talk about this a lot, but it could be good things that you've made God things. Are you looking to your kids? Your marriage? What is it? Your stuff? Where are you looking to build a life to find something you can't find? For some of you, maybe you're in here and you're like, I'm bored with life. My job's boring. I don't like it. I'm not where I want to be. Maybe that's God's way of reminding you that you were meant for more. That you were meant for more. We were meant, those of us in Christ, those of us that see who God is, we're meant for more than just this life. We're meant with an eternity with the God that made us. This is fleeting. This is a breath. This is a vapor. And if we look to the wrong places, we'll find misery here. But when we look to the right places, we have endurance and hope. And remember, hope is the belief that all is not well, but all is not lost. We find that through Christ. For some of you this morning, this is foreign to you. And it may be because you've never surrendered your life to the finished work of Jesus, that you've been around religion, the things of religion, but you don't have a relationship with the God that's over the sun. That you haven't seen that when you were running from God, that he came down to you to rescue you on a rescue mission to save you from your rebellion. And this morning, you need to turn to him and you need to say, I'm actually finding myself, God, in the midst of misery. I have been looking in every nook and every cranny. I've tried to find it in every place I can find, the hope and the fulfillment that I'm longing for. I've tried it all. And maybe this morning, for the first time, you actually need to try God. You need to surrender your life to him and say, I want you. I want you to be the thing that sustains me because I've tried it all. I've been there, I've done that, and it's not working. It's not working. Would you look to the one who's over the sun this morning? For some of you, you need to surrender your life to Jesus for the very first time. For others of you, you're in the midst right now of expecting something from a specific area of life, and it can't give that to you. You're looking at your family, your home life, your marriage, your kids, your job, your money, your success, your career, your track, your school degree. You're looking to those things to be like, man, that's the thing. And I need you to hear this morning the warning that you are grasping at smoke if you think that thing will sustain you. It won't. It'll leave you coming back for more smoke over and over again and leave you miserable in this life. This is what we're drawn into in the book of Ecclesiastes. For some of you, maybe you're in the midst of disappointment or you feel stuck. Maybe your life has been a sham in so many ways. Maybe you're confused at what's next or wondering if God even cares. What you need to see is that part of it is when we understand the reality that we live in and who God is, we've got to be able to look beyond our circumstances. We've got to be able to look beyond those things that we're struggling with, knowing that ultimately they can't give us what we really need. And I know you might be in the midst of a place where you're just like, but you don't understand how hard this is. And I don't. But what I do know is you can have hope in the midst of it. That I think what the beauty of Ecclesiastes is it points us to the reality that life is hard and life is confusing and we don't know why things happen. And this doesn't mean that you don't grieve the circumstances and the suffering that you've been through, but it does mean that you have to be careful how much weight you put in it. You can grieve something without putting ultimate weight in it. Do not put the ultimate weight of your satisfaction on the things that you've lost that you're grieving. Grieve them and grieve them well, but be careful how much weight that you put in them because those things, if you had them, would not be the thing that would sustain you. Y'all, my hope is that we begin to become okay with the perplexing realities of this world, that we would see beyond what's happening in it to the God that's over it. And as we walk out there in the midst of confusion and chaos, that we would see that there's a God that's not in the midst of confusion and chaos, that he's over it all and he's with us and he's near to us in the midst of all of it, and that he offers us purpose in the midst of that perplexity. And the question is, will you lean in? Will you see that for yourself? Will you turn to the Word of God this week and say, God, would you show me more of yourself so that I can live more for you, that I can be more refined by you? My hope is that Ecclesiastes draws us in to learn more about who God is and how he brings that purpose in the midst of the perplexity, how he helps us in the midst of the challenging circumstances, how he helps us see that the things that we want, that we think that we need, aren't the things that we ultimately need. Would you bow your heads with me? I don't know where you are. I don't know what God's doing in your life, but my hope is that we would all turn to him this morning. And as we do every week, we want to turn the altar into a prayer space for you to come and you to pray. For some of you, this is, if not all of us, the immediate response is we open our hands and we repent for the things that we've looked to, the smoke that we've grasped at. And this morning that we would fix our eyes on God. Maybe for some of you, this should be a calming peace that in the midst of what you're walking through right now, you're like, man, in some ways it makes sense because this is a lost, broken, and confusing world. But I don't have to be wandering in the desert. I can be with the God that created this world, that came down to redeem this world and promises to restore this world one day. Would you lean in? For some of you, need to surrender your life to Christ for the very first time. For others of you, it's just open-handed and open heart saying, God, would I see you? Free me from the distractions. Free me from thinking I'm gonna find something in my job. Free me from this pursuit of smoke that the world so easily lures us into. So I want to encourage you to turn this into a space of prayer as we get ready to sing this morning. You come. Father, we love you. We thank you for your goodness and your kindness. Thank you for books like Ecclesiastes that warn us of the realities of running after things in this world. Would you prick our hearts this morning for you? Would you show us more of yourself? And it's in Jesus' name that we pray.